In second place, number 4, Tori Rayleigh.
What a crazy last couple of weekends. Let's talk about it. So Tianna wins the Nevada State. A lot of people are talking about that one. It was a crazy competition. I was there in person to see it, of course. And Ashley Caldwell wins the Mile High last weekend. So we got a lot of things to talk about. To recap, let's jump into it. The talk of the town right now is Tianna stamping her ticket to the Olympia. Obviously, as Tianna's coach, that makes me ecstatic and thrilled. They work with her for a while now, and it's just an awesome moment. So catching that on tape, I think I've watched that myself like 100 times. I've had so many people tell me they have that on repeat. They have that on repeat. But what happened? How did Tianna actually do it? Because this show was really close. You know, when it first came out, there was a lot going on with the competitors that came out. When Nade came out the first time and her posing, I mean, I was like, whoa, Nade looks crazy. She looks like the trophy right now. So how did Tianna get that win? What happened during the show? I'm going to go into it singing in person and actually talking to the judges after the show too, saying how was it that Tianna was able to get that edge, and where did it all go? You know, so now obviously congratulations to Tara and Nade, who got second and third place. They were actually 1 point difference between Tara and Nade. Tara edging out Nade by 1.7 points to 8 points, and Tianna getting a perfect score. So yeah, it wasn't as close as it looked originally, and I want to go into how the judging actually went down. So in that first call out, it was a crazy first call out. We had 7 competitors, so there was someone directly in the middle. This video here is when I started recording it. Obviously, this is when Tianna got moved to the middle. I started recording here, but there was a lot of movement. You had Fatu towards the middle. You had Nade in the middle, holding the middle. You had Tara being moved around. Peyton got moved around. So there was a lot of people being moved, and then Elizabeth even got moved into that towards that middle position, one off center. So there was a lot of movement happening, but when Nade first came out, I mean, she looked awesome. All eyes were on her, and then she was moved to the middle, and then things started shifting. You know, momentum started shifting. She started getting moved out. People started getting compared next to her. They started moving her out. They moved Tara in. They moved Tara out. They moved Nade out, and then they moved Fatu all the way out too. So it was kind of a crazy show to see who was going to win. And that's the thing. When you have a show where everyone is really close, there's going to be a lot of movement. The judges have to figure this out. So I do give the judges credit for taking their time, moving everyone out, moving everyone in the middle, giving everyone a chance to compete, and then moving people next to each other that were being competitive for second and third place. When that last move happened, you see Nade and Tara next to each other, and they're being compared for who's second. And there was only a 1 point difference between Tara and Nade, so it was a 7 to 8 points. It was anyone's game, and you know, Tianna got a perfect score. So what changed things, and what happened there? And I was a little confused by it too, and I wanted to clarify with the judges, because I was looking at it as a couple different things. I was looking at originally, and I said, okay, well, Tianna is super full right now. She is a little bit tight though. You know, that was the thing I was going into this show knowing Tianna was just a little bit tight. You know, we did this thing where we wanted her to be lean, and then we wanted to fill and spill her, you know, get her as full as we can. So I wanted to be just a little bit leaner than normal, but then fill her out like crazy. So when she spilled over, she would look the right level of conditioning, and we would know that she's 100% full. I do this from time to time when I have competitors that need maybe a little bit more size. Tianna is, you know, winning pro shows, but she is not at her full potential yet. And she's only 21 years old. She has some muscle to build before she's at her full potential at this point. So these are some of the tricks that I'll do when we have someone in that scenario where I need them to be as big as possible, get them a little bit leaner. The problem is that when you fly into Vegas, and she's from Seattle, so when you fly into Vegas, in its really dry climate, you could get a little drier sometimes. Sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. She started getting a little drier, and it was at the point we got to the show, you know, we did catch up a little bit, but she was just a little bit tighter than I originally wanted her. And she's going to be better at the next one, and expect to see her actually on stage again in not too long of a time, because I want to put out a physique that is a little bit better. That was Tianna, 95%. That was the best she's ever been, but she was still 95%. At the start of the show, when Nade came out, I was like, man, I messed up. I missed an opportunity here. This could have been her show. If I would have just nailed that just a little bit softer on that conditioning, she'd be absolutely her best. But she was a little bit under her best, and it was really bothering me. And then the moves started happening. So maybe I'm good. Maybe I'm good here. Even though I know that she could be a little bit better. So expect to see her one more time at least. And she will be a little bit better. We'll correct that knowing when she flies in here to compete that she will be getting a little bit drier. So we'll plan about that. Usually people do get a little bit drier when they're coming into Vegas, but not that much. She was really tightening up. And that happened to Elizabeth the first year she came in too. She started getting really dry. So, it happens sometimes and sometimes it doesn't. So you just never know. But let's go ahead and go into the physiques. I really want to go into Nadee's physique first because Nadee came out and man, she really did look great. Her physique is awesome. I gotta admit. Now, I talked to the judges after the show. I said, what was the differentiating? I said, when we looked at Nadee, she was very wow when she came out. She was, all of our eyes were on her. It did look like she was going to be the original winner when we first saw her, and we were like, man, she looks really good. Her tie-ins are crazy. Her fullness is crazy. Her balance looks really good. But as she started getting compared next to everyone on the show, she just looked a little bit smooth. She didn't have the definition in her core. Her muscles just had like a layer of smoothness to them. And even though she has an awesome complete physique, when you look at Tianna next to her, who was lean and you could see the definition in her core and see the definition of her muscles, she was really round and full and dense. And when you looked at Nadee, she was round and full, but she was a little smooth. And that was a difference between them. And they said, it was close. But then when we started seeing her next to Tianna, then we were like, yeah, she's just a little too smooth to give her the win today. And I was like, okay, that actually makes sense. It took, I was wondering what was going on because the thing is, from the back, when you look at Nadee, her tie-ins are so good and so crispy that you just kind of don't think about it. You think, oh, wow, she's so full and she's so complete and her tie-ins are so good. She has to be in great condition. But if you look at her from the front, even though she's in great condition, she is just a little bit smooth from the front. And that was a differentiator between that. That was really it. If Nadee comes in just a tiny bit crisper on that core, a tiny bit crisper from the front, it's pretty much lights out in most of the shows that she's going to do. Her package that she's bringing is it's amazing. I got to admit, I was like, whoa, she looks crazy right now. Her physique looks so awesome. So they just have to nail that same level of fullness with a tiny bit better conditioning. And I don't even necessarily know if it's conditioning or if it's just like a small layer of water. Maybe she had some water retention, whatever the case may be, just a little bit more detail on that front. And it's going to be easily, she's getting to the Olympia this year. So I saw her come out. I just wanted to say, to her, I even told her, I said, Nadee, you looked awesome. Like you looked so crazy good. Look like the trophies that they give out. So, just one small error and, it changes the game between getting first and getting third that day. So it is what it is. She came out at the Girl Power show too, and she got 11th. Now she moved up to third. I think when she refines this last little bit, she'll be moving on to first and seeing her at the Olympia. No doubt about that. So let's go ahead and go into Tianna's physique. And as I said, I think that she was just a little bit tight. Not much though, just a hair. I think that Tianna, with this level of fullness, with about 2 pounds, will be the difference between her being, 95, 94% at her last show to 100% at her next show of her full potential. Now, seeing Tianna at her full potential, I don't think we're going to see that for another year. I think she is going to still need to be put on a little bit of muscle to be fully complete and max out her physique, maybe even a year and a half to get there. But she's already competing at the Olympia at 21 years old. She's the third youngest competitor to get to the Bikini Olympia stage with this level of muscle that we've seen. This is a different level of muscle than when you're looking at when Courtney King got to the Olympia, when you look at it, when Issa got to the Olympia the first few times. So she's in a very elite group getting to the Olympia at 21 years old, and her potential is pretty much limitless. So what do we need to work on for Tianna to get to that next level? Well, her shoulders and upper body are honestly, they look very good. There's not going to be a whole lot of work there. A tiny bit in the shoulders because she's going to have to get her lower body just a little bit bigger, but not because she actually needs it. She just needs to maintain balance. And with her getting her lower body a little bit bigger in the future and getting her glutes a little bit fuller, she's going to naturally need just a little bit bigger shoulders to balance her out. But when we look at the backside, when we look at the tie-ins, look at how complete they are, she doesn't need to really get any better on her tie-ins. A little bit more upper glute fullness to create more of that hourglass shape, to get the glutes to be a little bit, her hips look a little bit wider, a little bit fuller in the hamstrings, so there's a little bit less detail in the separation of the hamstrings, and a little bit softer conditioning to get her just to be even a little bit bigger with that softer conditioning while still maintaining most of the detail that we see here in her tie-ins. And she's going to be at her best. So yeah, it's going to take a little bit of muscle. I think that by the time we get to the Olympia, she's going to be very, very close. But we're going to need a little bit more muscle there. So I think that right now we get Tianna on stage again, have some fun, bring her at her best, play with some things before the Olympia, especially in, when we talk about the Vegas weather. And then from there, just kind of move on and just focus on the Olympia and focus on improvements after the Olympia to next year and come back maybe at her full potential, which would be crazy to say for a bikini competitor at 22 years old, which would be, next year. Now, there's another story I wanted to go into, which is kind of a crazy story at the show, which is going to be about Elizabeth. As you guys know, I worked with Elizabeth for, the better part of, I guess like a year and a half, 2 years. But I didn't work with her for this prep. And people were like, well, why didn't you work with her for this prep? Like, we're still good. She actually stayed at the prep house. We went to dinner after the show. Like, we're friends. She's hanging out with Kimber yesterday, everything. But Elizabeth has this thing that she wanted to do, which I was super unfamiliar with, and as you guys know, I am very particular on how I do things, especially, in season and off season. It's kind of like, hey, it's my way or the highway. My system works. You can see it's working with Ashley. It's working with Tianna. My system works, and I want to stick to my way that I'm familiar with, that I can produce champions with. But Elizabeth said she wants to be a bikini power lifter. And if you look at like her Instagram, she did it. Man, she lifts some heavy freaking weights. She is a full-on power lifter. And she did bikini. And I said to her, I said, we went back and forth on it. I said, it's a tricky scenario because I can't put out a physique a year and a half later that's worse when I've been working with you this whole time, because then that shows that you're regressing if you are doing that. And that's my fault and my responsibility. If you're regressing, that's my fault. I don't want to own that if you are doing powerlifting, which is unpredictable because no one's ever done a full powerlifting routine and did bikini, right? So I was always watching. We were always talking on Instagram and seeing how things were going and going back and forth. We talked a little prep stuff, but she did her own stuff for the most part for this prep. So I didn't touch her nutrition this prep. So anyway, when she came out and she did the mile high, she got a 4th place, right? She looked really good. I did think when I saw her, her arms got a little bit too big. I don't think anything else was too crazy, but her arms did get really crazy. She was doing a lot of bench press, which is going to make the triceps bigger, a lot of, lat pull downs, and a lot of just bicep type exercises. I don't know if she's even doing bicep particular exercises. So her upper body did get a lot bigger. She did, a full off season for, I think it was been 2 years now since she got back on stage. I think it's 2 years exactly, actually. So it's been a long time for her powerlifting. And she came back and we talked about it. She said, everything got bigger, but you were right. My waist did get a little bit bigger, but everything's still like in proportion in the same ratios. And it worked. She got 2 4th places. The judges did say the same things. They said her shoulders and arms got a little bit too big, but the lower body was okay. They said the lower body looked good. And so it was a cool story to see, cool story. And it helps me too. Like, hey, you know what? Maybe when these girls want to do powerlifting, we can throw some powerlifting in the off season. Now, this isn't just your normal strength training. This is like full on like powerlifting. Like she's lifting crazy loads, squats, deadlifts, bench press, pull-ups, like the heavy stuff, right? 1 rep maxes, all these things. So she's full on going for it. And it's just kind of cool to see that she did that. Elizabeth's kind of like that. She kind of marches to the beat of her own drum. And that was when I was like, yeah, I don't even know what to do there. How am I training you if you're doing powerlifting? How does this apply to bikini? I don't even understand. But hey, the end result, she did put on some muscle over these last couple of years. Yeah, the things that happened, we thought were going to happen. Maybe her waist got a little bit bigger from doing these heavy exercises, heavy compound lifts. Her upper body got a little bit too big for bikini, which is crazy to say. But hey, that's one way to put on muscle. Is it the best way? I don't know. I don't think so, but it still did work. And what's funny is I was talking to her, I said, if you focused, it's like you're playing a different sport, but you're still doing good in a different sport. It's like, I want to be really good at football, but I've been training only for baseball this whole time. And you just happen to be really, really talented and be good at football. So I told her, imagine how good you'd be doing if you practiced just doing football, for the next year. Imagine that. So I hope to see some things come from Elizabeth and her to come back again and, sculpt her physique more so to the bikini world. But it's a cool story. I thought it was just like something that was so interesting, especially because I was like, hey, I can't coach you during this time because I don't know what the end result's going to be. So it's just a cool thing to see. I was really happy to see her doing well. She's my good friend, and nothing but love for her. So it was one of those things people were asking about it too, and I was like, yeah. She was still hanging out with us backstage. Everything was cool, but it was just sort of those weird things that it's like, I don't even know what will happen here. Like, what's going to happen here? So anyway, now going back a couple weeks to the Mile High, we had a couple things happen at the Mile High. Ashley Caldwell, of course, she did amazing. She looked awesome. She won her 51st pro show. And here is Ashley's posing routine from the Mile High. So Ashley, it came out, she looked awesome. She won with a perfect score. And, I wanted to do this recap video a little earlier, but I was waiting for pictures from the Mile High. Unfortunately, there was no pictures on NPC News Online. And I wanted to, get those pictures and analysis on Raina and on Ashley. But I did get video from Raina. Raina looked awesome. I wanted to go into her physique too. So let's go ahead and Ashley first. Here's her posing routine. And as you can see, Ashley's being Ashley. Her conditioning is great. This year, her conditioning when she came out was right on. Last year when she came out the first time, she was just a little bit softer than where I would have wanted her originally, but still was good enough to get that win. This year at the Mile High, she was very close to her Olympia level conditioning, just a little bit softer. She's going to be doing a show this weekend coming up where she's actually at her full Olympia level conditioning. Now, as the year goes on and we get closer and closer to the Olympia and the lifts get harder and heavier and concentration becomes more and more, she will get a little bit fuller, a little bit more muscular come time for the Olympia. We kind of ramp up going into the Olympia and start off at the beginning of the year with, she's getting into that level of intensity on those workouts as she's going to be pushing really, really hard. We're probably even going to be flying a trainer in for 2 months before the Olympia. So expect to see her rounder and fuller and, giving it her best shot at the Olympia. She's not going to be doing a lot of shows this year, guys. She's going to be doing a few, and with most of the concentration being on the Olympia. You'll see her competing this weekend. We talked about it before, and you're going to be seeing her pretty soon in Vancouver as well. And we don't know what's going to happen after that, but expect to see her looking really awesome, and expect to see her at her full best come Olympia time because she's starting off the year with a bang. There's really not much to say with how she looked. Now, looking at Raina when she came out, that was another surprise. Just like I was surprised when I saw Nadej. When I saw Raina, I was like, geez. And Raina also has what we call the backstage body. When you see her backstage, she looks good. Some women, when they're on the bikini stage, they look really great. And you see them backstage and they don't even look anything like they were on stage. So some people come to life when they're on stage, and some people are just that natural bikini competitor where they have me and Ashley say, oh, she's got a good backstage body. We're like, oh, that means she's going to be really good on stage. Raina when she came even to check-ins, everyone was checking Raina out. And we're like, dude, Raina looks nuts right now. We've seen Raina. I was like, oh man, this is going to be a tough one. And when Raina came out, man, she looks so good. She's a lot more complete. One other thing about Raina is that her clavicles are not that wide. She doesn't have the most clavicle width on her shoulders, so she always had just a little bit narrow shoulders, but she really fixed that and plugged that hole. Her shoulders are looking nice and wide now. She's got a good balance from upper to lower body. Her balance is still a little bit off from upper to lower body, but way, way better than it was last year. She's made honestly, 2 years of improvements in 1 year. When she came out, I was like, how did she make that much improvement? Maybe I was just looking at her the wrong way before because she looks totally different. Her glutes are so full, so round. Her tie-ins are so complete. She's not overly grainy. She's lean and conditioned. Honestly, I think if Raina would have done any other show than the Mile High that weekend, she would have won it and probably would have won it with a perfect score. But when you run into the number 2 girl in the world, the number 1 all-time winningest bikini pro, it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard to get past when she's even at 95%. And Ashley was pretty close to her best there. So just not the show for her because of who she ran into. But if she were to do any other show that weekend, honestly, I think that she would crush it. And I think that she's going to be doing a couple other shows from what I talked to her this year. And I will probably see, honestly, unless she runs into some, an Ashley, Laura Lee, Amy, Maureen scenario, I could see her winning, a couple shows this year going into the Olympia. Her physique is really, really hard to get past right now. It's different, guys. It's different from where we saw her before. So really happy to see her as well. Always happy to see competitors making those improvements. And, speaking of improvements too, I also wanted to give a shout out to Brittany Gillespie, who was at the Toronto, who ended up getting a second place there. But when I saw her physique, I was like, wow, she is looking really complete. I know anytime I give a critique on someone's physique where I say, you know, something's a little too much or whatever, which I have said about Brittany, that her glutes were a little bit too much in that front pose. She has actually changed her posing just a tiny bit where they look a little bit more controlled. Her balance looks a little better. It seems like she's completed her physique just a little bit more where she's not so overpowering in that front glute profile from in that front pose. So I want to give her credit too, because she's made those adjustments. She's looking a lot more complete, a lot more, just a lot more balance from upper to lower body. From the back, I don't think there's not much room for improvement. I do think her hamstrings are showing a little bit of separation, and that could have been the differentiator between her winning first and second between Jess, because Jess looked really awesome that day too. I want to give her credit for that. But this video is going to be, I don't want this video to go on forever. I just want to give credit to everyone. Awesome shows. I'll be doing more reviews. I'm trying to do them at the shows that I see too, because it's a lot different when you're there in person and you visually see things. But if you have any good ideas for me on any of these shows that are coming up, I'll be happy to do them. Anyway, guys, just wanted to get this one out here. Congrats to Tianna. I think I watched that video, that moment of her realizing she's going to the Olympia, probably 100 times by now. It was a very, very special moment. We get some of these special moments in bikini when we see someone realize their dreams. And this girl is a hard worker. She's realized her dream. She has earned that miracle, you know? So I'm going to be very, very happy to get to the Olympia with her this year. It's going to be an awesome, awesome year. So anyway, guys, thank you guys so much for the support. As always, TeamElitePhysique.com with worldwide online coaching with me. I'll talk to you guys next time.